So the Premier League relegation race is done and over with, so I think it's time that we go back and review what we missed out on. So I made one of these relegation race videos about a month or so ago, so if you haven't watched that, there'll be a video annotation up here, or here. Wherever. But if you're caught up, here's where we last left off. Between Southampton and safety was a 4-point gap. Leicester City found themselves 2 points from safety, while the only thing separating 18th place Forest and 17th place Everton was goal difference. The last of the teams in true danger was 16th place Leeds United, sitting 2 points above danger. From the previous video, according to 538, the teams most likely to relegate were Southampton, Nottingham Forest, and Everton, while Leicester City and Leeds United were still at risk of relegating. But going into the last 7 games, last place Southampton's remaining schedule was the 5th hardest. The Saints still had to play Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton, and Liverpool, and having only scored 7 goals since the beginning of February, it would be a very difficult task to pull off any kind of great escape. 19th place Leicester had a couple things favoring them down this last stretch. A decent attack and also the 4th easiest schedule going forward. However, their defense has been astronomically bad. 3rd most goals conceded in February, and not to mention, they still haven't kept a clean sheet this year. 18th place Forest has had one of the worst attacks in the league and also one of the worst defenses since February. Already some bad signs, and then you remember they have the 3rd most difficult schedule going forward. They still needed to play Liverpool, Brighton, Brentford, Chelsea, and Arsenal. 17th place Everton had scored more points than 7 other teams since the beginning of February. The question though was, could they keep that form going with the 8th most difficult remaining schedule? Lastly, there's 16th place Leeds United, a club where the concept of defending is as visible as an oncoming tree a drunk driver sees. 27 goals conceded since February and 60 conceded overall, both the worst in the league. And when it comes to the remaining schedule, Leeds has the 7th most difficult. They still had to play Fulham, Man City, Newcastle, and Tottenham. But anyways, now into the remaining action. Leicester City, with new manager Dean Smith, had a nightmare start when the 15,000th error led to an early goal. However, the Fox rallied back to score 2 unanswered and grabbed a huge victory, while Everton would grab a single point at Selhurst. So with both Everton and Forest dropping points, it means Leicester for the time being are safe from relegation thanks to goal difference. They sit right behind 16th place Leeds, who lost 2-1 against Fulham. Southampton did well to surprise the masses and grab a huge point away at Arsenal, but unlucky them because they're still 4 points from safety. It's a midweek and there were plenty of important games, but the first one we'll talk about is Leeds vs Leicester. Luis Sinisterra comes up big at the far post and Leeds are 1-0 up after just 19 minutes played. However, in a heavily contested second half, the Red Bull Rambo himself, Jamie Vardy, scores what could be another important goal in Leicester's history. But it's not over yet. 89 minutes played, the ball falls to a wide open Bamford. You know, to be fair, he was offside, I guess. Forest surprised many the very next day, beating European contenders Brighton 3-1 at home. And now is probably a good time to briefly talk about their new signing Danilo. He came from Palmeiras in January and is already establishing himself as an important piece for Forest. Looking at the table now, Nottingham Forest have jumped into 17th, 1 point above danger. Leicester and Leeds share points, but it doesn't really favor either of them. Leicester drop into 18th and Leeds are now 1 point above danger. But things weren't looking better for the other bottom teams. Everton dropped further down the table again because of the beatdown they took against Newcastle. And then down at the very bottom, the alarms are starting to ring for Southampton, who after another loss are 6 points from safety. 3 days later, and every single relegation candidate fails to pick up any points. And for Leeds, this was enough to sack manager Javi Gracia. In his place, Big Sam. It may be a short amount of time, but Sam Allardyce is the master of the dark arts when it comes to Premier League survival. In the past, he's saved 4 teams from relegation. The following day, though, sees another exciting battle as Leicester take on Everton at King Power Stadium. And this was honestly the funniest match I had seen in a while, because you could go on leisurely walks throughout the entire opposition like it was a rich suburb. And the International Union for Conservation of Nature could honestly list defending as extinct the way these teams were playing. Nonetheless, Dominic Calvert-Lewin would draw first blood for Everton in the 15th minute. Just 6 minutes later though, Soyuncu slides one past the human T-Rex and it's now level. 32 minutes played now, nostalgia gets injected into our veins as Jamie Vardy scores off his classic runs in behind. The Foxes had the chance to run away with it and grab all 3 points here. And they it up. To make things worse, Everton would find the equalizer in the second half and the game would end 2-2. With those results, things could not be tighter in the race for survival. There's just a 1-point gap between 16th place Leicester and 19th place Everton. Even wilder is the three-way tie on points between 16th place and 18th place. While this is all happening, Southampton are slowly seeing themselves starting to fade out of the race and fall into the pit of future parachute payments. After the first weekend of May, the only relegation candidate to have played was Leeds, who lost to Man City. Oh, also Chelsea beat Bournemouth, so now it's mathematically impossible for them to relegate. Sad times. Every one of the other relegation battle teams, though, would play the very next day on Monday. And let me tell you, this was chaos. Leicester City lost to Fulham 5-3. Everton would do something so anti-Everton and score 5 goals against Brighton. And then finally we witnessed a 7-goal thriller at the City ground where Forest would grab all 3 points. With these results, Leeds and Leicester fall to 18th and 19th tied on points. While Everton, thanks to their massive feat, jump out of the relegation zone 2 points clear. And Nottingham Forest now sit 16th, a whole 3 points above danger. Matchday 36 was next, and every team dropped points one way or another. Leeds started their match well against Newcastle with a goal in the first 6 minutes. However, their defense would let them down again and gave away 2 straight penalties. Luckily though, Rasmus Christensen would save Walmart Los Blancos a point. There were some pretty similar scenes at Stamford Bridge between Forest and Chelsea. Forest score early through Awoniyi, Chelsea respond twice in the second half, and then Awoniyi saves Nottingham Forest a ginormous point away from home. Then there was Southampton, who that same day lost 2-0, which meant they were officially the first team relegated from the Premier League. Everton played Man City the following day, and sadly, City's insane form was no match for Goodison's energy. Then Leicester played the following Monday and were chewed up and spat out by Curtis Jones. Thus, this is the table now. Because of their loss, Everton are holding on to 17th with their lives, just a single point between them and 18th place Leeds. Due to Leeds' draw, Leicester's loss sends them down to 19th, 2 points below safety, while 16th place Forest's draw with Chelsea means they still maintain a 3-point difference between them and the relegation zone. So with 2 games remaining, let's go quickly look at the 538 predictions and how much they've changed, because let me tell you, they've definitely changed a lot. 19th place Leicester, who were initially favored to barely survive, go from a 39% chance of relegation to an 86% chance. Having wasted plenty of opportunities, they will now have to play Newcastle away and West Ham at home. 18th place Leeds, who had a 24% chance of relegating, now find themselves with a 64% chance. Their final games are West Ham away and Tottenham at home. 17th place Everton were predicted to go down with a 56% chance, but that's now fallen down to a 26% chance. Their remaining games are Wolves away and Bournemouth at home. And finally, there's 16th place Nottingham Forest, who turned an 80% chance of relegation into a 24% chance, the lowest of the bunch. Their last 2 games are Arsenal at home and Palace away. Hey guys, no, this is not a YouTuber apology in the middle of a video. Although, maybe I should apologize for this video. Simply put, I'm just in London right now, so the setup of all my many jerseys that are fake and some real, not in the background. But obviously things will definitely change once I come back. I've been in London for about a week, spent like a weekend in Paris. You guys don't care about that. Relegation battle time. So into matchday 37, Everton steal a point away from Wolves thanks to a Yerry Mina goal in the 8th minute of stoppage time. 2 hours later, over at the City ground, Forest, after a single Awoniyi goal against Prime without the drink FC, secure survival, with the 3rd most difficult schedule remaining as well, which is just an incredible feat when you think about it. Leeds the next day lost to West Ham 3-1, while Leicester, just like 2016, do the impossible, although this time it may be a little less impressive. They get a clean sheet against Newcastle after giving up 23 shots. Don't you just love this game? So with the final day of matches closing in, this is the table so far. 3 teams find themselves fighting for one last spot to survive. Current holders of that spot are Everton, while Leicester and Leeds are both 2 points below the Toffees. So going into the final matches, every party that we've mentioned will be playing in front of their home supporters, which just makes this even more crazy. 17th place Everton will host Bournemouth at Goodison Park. Now already Goodison Park, a strong fortress for Everton, but also, if they were to relegate, Iwobi's Gardner would not be too happy about that. So really, the stakes are very high for Everton. Simply put, if Everton win their last match, both Leicester and Leeds automatically relegate. It's really simple for them. However, if Everton draw, that could spell danger if either of the two teams below manages a win. 18th place Leicester play West Ham at King Power Stadium. Goal difference is their biggest ally here. I mean, Leicester has had a pretty good attack. It's just the fact that their defense makes every Leicester supporter want to jump out a window. So if Everton are to slip up, like a draw or a loss, then if Leicester win, they will stay up. Now, the only problem though is if you look into the world of history, Leicester have only managed one win in their last 15 matches. Now for our last team, 19th place Leeds, they play Tottenham at home. Out of the three teams that we've mentioned, Leeds have the biggest chance of relegating due to that awful goal difference, but in fact it's only just 3 less than Everton, which is insane when you think about it, because if you've seen Leeds play even once, you just expect them to concede at least 5. But then you kind of forget that Everton don't really have anyone reliable in attack. Another thing that could be a slight advantage for Leeds is the fact that they play the Identity Crisis FC themselves, Tottenham. The scenario that would see Leeds stay up will take a miracle. Their best bet is a Leicester and Everton loss while they win. However, they can also go through if Everton draw and Leeds win by more than 3 goals. But let's be fair here. Worst scenario though, a Leicester win would actually see Leeds relegate due to Leicester's negative 18 goal difference. Actually, sorry, I was wrong. Even worse scenario, they get pulled apart like string cheese. Leicester, on the other hand, meant business. Harvey Barnes in the 34th minute slots one home for the Foxes. And as Everton have still yet to score against Bournemouth, Barnes' goal puts Leicester in 17th, 1 point above Everton, and King Power Stadium is going mental. But then, 57 minutes played at Goodison, Everton's Abdoulaye Doucouré with the strike of conviction scores a banger to be etched into the minds of every Evertonian who lived to see it. With that goal, Everton jump into the last safe position, and Leicester fans are absolutely silent at King Power Stadium. They can't believe what they are seeing. Leicester though would double their lead over West Ham in the 62nd minute, however nothing in the table would change as Everton would hold on for dear life until the very end. And thus, Leeds and Leicester City have officially been relegated. Ever since the departure of Bielsa, it has been pretty tough for Leeds. There hasn't been much of a direction outside of the random raw freedom ball era that happened for I don't know, 4 months. But Leicester relegated? That comes to a shock to even me. Just 7 years ago, Leicester City inspired the world and did the impossible with a tiny fraction of Man City's value and became the Premier League champions. It's a story that still gets told and will continue to be told because of just how incredible it was. And then the year after, I recently got a video that just kind of popped up in my recommended that showed Leicester City playing Atletico Madrid in the quarterfinals of a Champions League match. And then 4 seasons ago, they finished 5th. They bottled on the last day, but 5th, that's still incredible. The following season after that, they were 1st by November. They were hanging around top 4 for pretty much the majority of the season. And yes, again, they bottled it on the last day, but still, it was incredible to see. This was a team that had emerged from mid-table and was breaking into that Big 6 mold. And to see them, after just 2 seasons, relegating, it's just the Premier League. I don't know what to say. And then finally, we get to talk about Everton, the last team to survive this season. For a second consecutive time, they survive an intense relegation battle. And this time I'd say it was even more difficult because they didn't have a player like Richarlison who could score goals consistently. But after 2 seasons, it feels like we have Sunderland all over again. It feels almost inevitable that one day this team will relegate. Who knows? But now to cap off this video, let's give a warm welcome to our newly promoted sides that we'll be seeing in the 2023-24 season. Burnley returned to the Premier League with one of the craziest 180s I have ever seen in football. Vincent Kompany has come in, changed the entire culture. We are seeing high possession and entertaining football from Burnley. Oh, also Sheffield United returned to the Premier League, and I know a lot of people say that the 2019-20 lockdown part of the season never actually happened. It was a myth. what you were seeing on that TV. It was just your mind messing with you, but they did finish 9th. And they did hang around top 5 for a good bit. But finally, we have the most incredible story of this entire Premier League season, or I guess English Football League season. And that would be Luton Town. Luton Town last season came up short in the playoffs, but they have come back, won on penalties in the playoff final, and are now in the Premier League. And this was a team just 9 years ago who were in the 5th division. I mean, it's just an incredible story. It's why we love this sport so much. It's just these started from the bottom type stories. They're always incredible, captivating. It's what makes this sport just more special than any other. I mean, just think about it. 9 years ago, 5th tier, they had to climb all the way up. I mean, just think for a second. What were you doing 9 years ago? Me making FIFA World content and crushing over goth girls. But what did you guys think of this relegation battle, and were your predictions right? I can tell you mine were definitely not. But of course, a massive shout out to all our patrons, including Janos Balas, Chris Damasceno, Miliaway009, Thomas, Aldipu, Alex Rod, Ulta, Min Suarez, Aresan, Carlos Anaya, Daniel Ortiz, Francisco Hernandez, Guy, Joao Carvalho, Jonah, Marco Fujimoto, Miguel Munoz, Return Fire, Rivera Drawin, Rory Burns, Saw, Slider Kit, Sniffer, Takaoka Fan, The Motor Drive, Tomicus, Vanilla Mexican 17, Victor, Bubble, Chris Visconsi, Q Snatty Champs 2022, Dominic Griffin, Emmett Shea, Lewis, Joe Paricio, Michael Nista, MX Weeb, Niche, Patrick Barley, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to join the Patreon, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want. You can follow my Instagram if you'd like. You can follow me on TikTok. I don't think I've posted since like March, but I'm trying to get to 20,000 there. And of course, you can follow my semi-active Twitch. I'm just telling you, I have a bunch of things I really like. Ever since I've been in London, I've wanted to stream again. So once I'm back home, definitely gonna do that. So please do definitely follow the Twitch, because I have some exciting ideas. Yeah, but until then, I'll see you guys.